The Blackstone endless side quests. Loading complete.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the bargain bin of side quests. As always, I am Hanrald, and we've got Kimmer and Lust. How you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good.
Not bad.
Staying out of trouble or staying in trouble?
Yes.
No.
Both the correct answer. So how's your guys' New Year going? How's things chilling?
I had a pretty fun New Year. Chicago and stuff like that, so that was fun. I can do a quick little synopsis of that. Yeah, I went over to Chicago for the New Year to visit my friend and for the first time and do my co-hosts for my podcast, the Double D podcast. So it was a fun time. They showed me around Chicago and I got to see a bunch, eat deep dish pizza for the first time, like real deep dish pizza. So
Nice.
It was good. It was fun.
And what about you, Lust? How's your New Year going? I know that, like me, you have family life, so things are probably more quiet.
Actually, it's been pretty busy and a lot more exciting. Like my New Year's was spending time at family, like most people. But we also played Uno, got kind of drunk and stuff. Thank God I had some alcoholic eggnog. Just went for it. Yeah, it was really fun time, and then just a lot of moving parts between like work and everything else. So,
well, that's good. Well, today's topic, gentlemen, we are doing another pop culture topic. We are probably not going to touch on anime as the season pretty much started today. We're going to touch on one of our other favorite subjects. We're going to touch on some video games. I'm kind of excited because I'm quite a lot older than you guys. So I don't know what growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s was like for video games. So I kind of want to touch on like, what kind of video games did you guys grow up with? And how does it differ to the way things are today? Because for me, it's a massive shift. And I'll go last to get into that. But like Lust, why don't we start with you? What's kind of the games that you grew up with and how does it differ from today? Just as a kind of baseline to get the conversation started.
I still grew up with like older Nintendo and stuff like that to start out because, that's just what my family could afford. And then moved into like the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. A lot of my memories come mostly from the PlayStation 2, but then also the original Xbox and like Halo and everything like that. But for me, like my favorite games and games that I wish still got love are the Jak and Daxter series. I really love all three of the original games, and then Jak X Racing was also a nice little shift, which a lot of games tend to do when they decide not to make a true sequel. Don't get me wrong, I thought the ending for Jak and Daxter, where it basically loops back to the beginning, was really good, but I feel like you still could have expanded a little bit off of it and made new content, because you look at like Sly Cooper and it had a pretty true ending in the third game, and that's another gaming thing that I like. But then they still made a fourth game. Ratchet and Clank, they're still making new games for. Crash Bandicoot, they recently made a new game for. So it's like a lot of those older games have been made new. So for me, it's really sad to see my personal favorite series not be as developed. And I know it's not just mine, but it had a pretty big fan base and still does to this day. I know they remastered them and stuff, but even those remasters are pretty underdeveloped to others. But going forward from other old games and how things developed, I have transitioned back and forth from Xbox to PlayStation to Xbox to PlayStation, where I finally re-landed on PlayStation. My biggest reason for switching to Xbox was I loved the online community, and I felt like Xbox at the time was stronger, but I also was 13 years old and pretty pretty ignorant to what was true and what was false. I just kind of was like, my friends like Xbox, so I like Xbox. But seeing where games have come today, it is so real how different things are, how much more realistic certain games are, how much the online community has changed. Like, online gaming in particular, or I guess I already said online, but in particular with how chat has changed. League of Legends, for instance, it's all basically typing unless you're in a Discord with your friends or whatever, versus on Xbox, it was being called a fucking little bitch or a squeaker or whatever else directly to you. And it was way more fun back then because you could actually talk your shit and it would be fine, versus today it's a lot more subtle and shut down. Not that that's a bad thing, because toxicity does go too far, but it is fun to still be able to talk shit and not feel like you're going to get reprimanded every single time for it.
Well, there's difference between being, having fun with, the talking shit and being a toxic person.
No, 100%.
So, what
But
about you?
yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, the last little bit was gaming has come like to a very big pinnacle, and I'm very excited for where it will go. So,
And what about you, Kim? You're younger than Lust, so it's probably similar era, but a little bit different, I guess.
Yeah, so from like my childhood, I remember playing on like the Nintendo 64 and like GameCube. Those are like Super Mario 64 was like a very big pinnacle for me. Same with The Legend of Zelda. I think it was
Ocarina
which
of
one
Time.
was it? No, it was the one before that one.
Oh, the one before that was the Super Nintendo one, Link to the Past.
Yes, that's this. I played that a lot too on my uncle's Super Nintendo. From there, it transferred over to PlayStation 2, and the Wii. The Wii was a lot of fun. Super Wii Sports or whatever, Wii Sports, whatever it was called.
Wii
I got a bunch
Sports,
of
yeah.
games like Bakugan. That was a really fun game for me. But for PlayStation 2 is probably like the main console I played, and I played a lot of Final Fantasy, a lot of Need for Speed, all of those fun racing games and easy games, I guess you can call it. I guess Final Fantasy X wasn't easy, but I just mainly played, kind of the basic games, and I didn't really play like Jack and Dexter. I didn't really play any of that. I didn't really play Ratchet and Clank very much, but I did play a lot of Spyro. Spyro was a lot of fun, and then I played a lot of like Madden. I wasn't very good at it, but I still played it back then. I'm a little bit better now at it, I would say. And then I could still beat Griffin easily, no problem. And then from there, it kind of went from like Xbox 360 to PlayStation 3, mainly like Call of Duty, Minecraft. When it was finally came to, or when it was a console version, I played a lot of that on the 360. And then another one, I think it was just mainly Call of Duty at those age. Like I feel like Call of Duty was such a heavy pinnacle in that time of our life, like Griffin was saying. Because like the games were bangers every year or every 2 years or whenever they were releasing. They were actually good and good content. And
So much better.
you'd actually be able to sit there and play with your friends and talk shit to other people and stuff like that. And I think that
Oh, and the late night game releases.
the late night game releases, the going to the store by like midnight or whatever,
Yeah.
that's fun. That was fun. Now you don't get that anymore because everything's online. But it's and then from there, I stayed on to PlayStation, went to PlayStation 3 again, and then went to PlayStation 4, obviously PlayStation 5 now, and PC. I think I got a PC though probably 2010, 11, and I played RuneScape. And then League of Legends I got into probably 2011 or 12, somewhere around there. It was in middle school. Wasn't very good at it. I was building like Frozen Mallet on Karthus for no reason. I just thought I needed health. And I was like, oh, and it slows people? Perfect. I'm going to get this Frozen Mallet on Karthus. And then I was getting flamed in chat for building a Frozen Mallet on Karthus. And I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm 10 years old. So
That's no excuse. There's a Russian 4-year-old who's like Diamond.
Okay, listen. Listen here.
The game didn't come out until I was 27, so I have no excuses for my terrible builds other than I just didn't pay attention that you couldn't stack items. First time I played a ranked game, or not ranked game, a normal, I was building double Bramble Vest.
I mean, 27 is almost retirement age for professional League of Legends, so there's your excuse right there.
Yeah, and by the time I hit the age of 30, I had taken a 4x4 to my wrist and it was damaged. So like, I used to be like a pretty solid gamer. Like I wasn't like super pro level or anything, but I was a solid gamer. And now that my wrist is just bummed, it's like, I literally
Hanrald.
Yeah. So Kim, you mentioned all the stuff that you had growing up. Like, how do you feel that the games compare to now from then? Like in terms of enjoyment?
Fucking suck.
Really?
If I'm gonna be real, if I'm gonna be honest, like I don't know. I just think that a lot of the games are forcefully fed out. I just think that it's almost 92% of the games that come out are cash grabs, in my opinion.
Yep.
I don't think we've had like a maybe Spider-Man, maybe I still haven't even beat it, but like I don't think there's been a game where it's like maybe Fortnite when it first dropped, but like I just don't think there's been a game where like truly captivating of just what we had growing up.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Nah, even that I just don't think.
It's not a cash grab though, because Larian Studios built the game because they wanted to build a good game, and that's why it won Game of the Year. The exclusives are like that too, like Tears of the Kingdom, Spider-Man, God of War.
Yeah,
they're not necessarily cash grabs. I mean, obviously they're all in it to make money. Like we'd be stupid to not admit that, but they're not the cash grabs that the Call of Duties are, that the Assassin's Creeds are. So basically, EA and Activision essentially that are kind of the premier cash grabs for AAA titles. Even though I would never call Call of Duty a AAA title anymore. Definitely has not been one for 10 years.
See, and
go ahead, Griff.
I was just going to say, I'll interject since Spider-Man was brought up. Out of the 3 Spider-Man games that have been released, because there's also the Miles Morales spin-off from the original, I will say all 3 are excellent games. Miles Morales is the worst, but for the small minuscule detail of, personally, I don't care to watch the cutscenes because I just don't have the time. Because I'm just like, I need to play. I don't have the time to watch them. Maybe I'll go back through and play and actually watch and double my game time. But beside the point, that's the only thing I dislike is you can't skip every cutscene in Miles Morales. And that's a stupid reason not to like a game. Other than that, like, the game is really clean. The gameplay in each one has unique feelings, and I will say for me, all the Spider-Mans are really good. I do have to agree with Kim, though. It's like definitely a 90-10, where 90% of the games are very average or less than average. And then the 10% that are really good, sadly, it's almost only story games that hit that 10%, with the occasional like Baldur's Gate 3 that are good enough to be a multiplayer and part of that 10%. So
I was going to say that and I can kind of agree with these RPG games that They're not as big as a cash grab, but I just think that there could be a little bit more work done into them. Like we used to get like
Sure.
hours and hours of content. Now we get 24 hours of storyline,
Mhm.
Yeah.
36 with side quests maybe on most games. Like we used to get 60 plus hours of game time in these games. And it might
Oh,
just because
agreed.
they was like, I mean, a little bit harder to make, I guess, but I still feel like the games now are harder in my opinion, because you got to get good graphics and they have to make sure they're better specs and all that stuff. So I don't know. I think that they could do better, you know?
Well, there's
Yeah.
always the case of them being able to do better. And I kind of agree that the gameplay is a lot shorter. And the reason, and it's the stupidest reason, is supposedly the younger generations, meaning you guys and the generations that follow you, have shorter
Mhm.
attention spans. They want the instant gratification. They
Mm.
want to pass the game right now.
Mhm.
They want to level up right now. So like going back to the main topic, like I'll just introduce my stuff just because this is a good
Sure.
segue. I was born in 82. All right. My first game was Mega Man 2 in 1988. It was the first game that was given to me, right? So we got a Nintendo that Christmas. My brother and I each got a
Mhm.
game, plus we had Mario and Duck Hunt. Now, you could have instruction booklets that tell you how to play the game, what the controls do. That's it.
Yeah.
No one told me that in Mega Man I had to figure out, Metal Man is you can hit harder with Metal Man against Bubble Man, Air versus Quick Man. Like, yes, I can remember this still almost 30 years later, almost 40 years later, actually. So you had to figure that out on your own. But the thing is I can finish that game still to this day in about 30 minutes. I'm not a speedrunner. That's not a speedrun at all. I spent hours playing that game, literal
Yeah.
hours all the time, playing it, playing it, playing it, playing it, playing it. And now, you have these games like Call of Duty where it's all multiplayer, it's all the same map. League of Legends, same thing. Summoner's Rift, right?
Mhm.
But the difference is like, so my brother and I, we've been playing Heroes of the Storm, which is Blizzard's take on a MOBA, which they developed way too late, put so little effort into, and it's actually a solid MOBA. It's actually pretty solid, but it is very simple because every character has 3 builds, and that's it. You don't have to buy items. You don't have to buy wards.
Mhm.
It's the team fight mechanics of the MOBA. It has different maps. Each map has a different kind of objective, which is kind of nice. But League of Legends, I always say, is the chess MOBA of the bunch. Now, Dota 2 you could probably compare to as well, but League of
Yeah.
Legends is more rounded than Dota 2, and I will argue that to the death just because the fact that they balance the game every 2 weeks. Well,
Yeah.
I say balance. They
Try
change the game.
to.
They change the game every 2 weeks. I'm actually waiting for them to do the next visual update. We haven't had one since 2015 with the new Summoner's Rift. So I
Mhm.
think we're probably due for a new graphics update. That might just depend on how many users are playing on lower specs, right? Which is what you don't want to alienate like 70% of your player base, especially when you got over 100 million players worldwide, right? So growing up for me, these things were new technology. There was no internet. The only person you could talk shit to was your friend or your sibling sitting right next to you, right?
Yeah.
There were no voice comms. There was none of that. So I grew up on Nintendo right up until the 64, and I got the PlayStation at the same time. I went to PlayStation because the games were better. And not only that, I grew up with the original Final Fantasy series. Now, in North America, we didn't get 2, 3, 5 until much later. So I had, the North American 1, 2, 3, Mystic Quest, Tactics, 6, well, sorry, 7, 8, and onward. Final Fantasy 7, when that came out, was groundbreaking graphics. Everyone is like, even Disney can't do graphics like this. Spent hours playing that game. 6 is still my favorite. And 6 was on the Super Nintendo, so it's a 16-bit game. And the reason why 6 is my favorite is because it has a story. It has the largest Final Fantasy roster of any Final Fantasy game.
It is true.
And depending on which characters you have, can actually change the ending. That was my first time getting multiple endings because it came out before Chrono Trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Chrono Trigger's got multiple endings. I've had them all. Some of them you have to do New Game Plus to do. which can make it really hard. Other games like they just released the Star Ocean the Second Story remaster. The remaster is fantastic. It looks great. There's over 80 endings
Jesus.
in that game.
Wow.
So the game is essentially the same, but the choices you make, because in that game, if you get one character, you might not get another character, right? So, because you have someone else, and there's two main characters. Depending which one you start with, depends on which endings you can even get. So if you choose Claude, you can only get the endings that involve him. If you choose Raina, you can only get the endings that involve her, even though they're supposedly a couple and together and all that stuff. That was the replay value. So all the side quests, figuring out what choices to make and which different choices to make, is one of the reasons why in the modern era I love Mass Effect so much. Now Mass Effect 3 is already 10 years old. Came out in 2013. I didn't even play them until 2018. My brother was streaming it and I got into it. So the difference between then and now, in my opinion, isn't the gameplay. The multiplayer is nice because if you didn't have a sibling or friends who could come over, like if you had parents who wouldn't allow people in your house, you couldn't play multiplayer games. You couldn't play the Street Fighters. You couldn't play Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, like the fighting games. You couldn't play the soccer games, the Maddens or anything. It was just you.
Yeah.
It got very boring, which is why a lot of the story-driven games were the popular moniker of the day. Of course, now we've got like the Battle Royale thing that's going on. Like everything's got to be multiplayer. Everything's got to be Battle Royale. Everybody's got to be involved. It's got to be online all the time. And I got no problem with that because it means that the people who don't have somebody in their immediate circle have somebody to play with. The problem is that very few games actually have a written story. So I brought up Baldur's Gate 3. Now, it's a story-based game with multiple side quests. If you want 100% the game, you will be spending somewhere between, I think conservative estimates are like 200 or 300 hours if you're a completionist, because of the different options that you can do, the different people you can romance, who survives, who dies, like all those kinds of things. So there's a lot of content there. The question is the game good enough to replay that much? And right now the general consensus is yes, but the game's only been out since July, August, right? It hasn't been out for that kind of long. I mean, I know there's probably people who have completed it already, but if you look at like Overwatch 2, they released Overwatch 2 because they were getting pressured by their shareholders, release the game, release the game, release the game. So they released the game, said, oh, we got an updated graphics engine. We're going to release all the story content that we've been planning for years. Oh no, we're not doing that anymore. So why did you release it? Why didn't you just leave it as and now it's a free to play game. So everybody who bought Overwatch spent money on a AAA game plus money on loot boxes to be escorted into a free game, which I mean, that's where I have the problem is that there's no story content. Like League has lore, lots of lore. And they're slowly expanding on that stuff with like Arcane, the Ruined King and all that kind of stuff. But League was, if you remember correctly, like if you remember where Dota started, it was a Warcraft 3 mod.
Yeah.
Right? So, and Warcraft 3 and like the Warcraft universe has tons of story, whether you like it or not. But that's the problem with most games now is it's all instant gratification. It's all for a quick buck. And I want to have fun with my friends, not I want to get immersed in something. The immersion games are a thing of the past, which is why the titles like God of War, Spider-Man, Baldur's Gate, a lot of the exclusives have a lot of majority following because those are the gamers who are like, I want to get invested in this story. I want to care about this story, right? I've played Mass Effect through probably 4 times now, like the entire trilogy, and I'm still discovering new shit.
For sure.
Still to this day, years later. And the HD remaster, fucking mint. The gaming scene has definitely changed from when I was growing up. It used to be an escape and something fun to do to something that's fun to do with interactive and people. Like you guys, we were playing League of Legends just last week. You guys are playing this morning. You can't play League of Legends sitting side by side on one computer. You have to play it on multiple computers, right? So it is a little different, but at the same time, the togetherness of the gaming community, and I'm not counting the competitive people or the toxic gamers, and they are 2 separate groups. That there is a gaming community. You can sit there, you can chill, you can meet people. I've met tons of people through gaming. So for me, it's more the interaction that has changed as well as the graphics. I mean, no one's playing 16-bit graphics anymore, but there are quite a few games, Stardew Valley's one, where the graphics are not high res, but it's a fun game for people to play, right?
Yeah, no,
So
100%.
they are still releasing games on old school graphics, old school platforms that are doing really well, but it is a niche area. But the vast majority of the games that are right here are your cash grabs. They're your Call of Duties, they're your, Fortnite and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
All the collabs with Fortnite need to stop. They're literally just making the game look worse than it actually should be. Because
agreed.
as a building battle royale shooter, it's supposed to be fun. But now you have
Yeah,
all these added characters for no other reason other than, ooh, I get to play as this character. Well, that's great if it's a skin. But they started changing
yeah,
the game with the mechanics, and that's where I have the problem. I don't mind
no,
running around in
agreed.
Fortnite as Goku, but I shouldn't be able to Kamehameha some guy who's been playing for 10 minutes who has a shovel, right?
Yeah.
That'd be
I
like,
don't know. Yeah, I think it's fun.
well, I mean, but think about it on the other side. The person who's just trying to learn the game is going to get discouraged and not want to play it, right? In fact, I actually tweeted this week at Freak in August, saying, "Hey, are you guys going to do an update on the league bot system for any new players that come in? Tarek is still broken. If you get Tarek in bot lane, he will stand there and let you kill him and not move, no nothing. The game's evolved to the point where for sure they could program one of the AIs to actually jungle,
Yeah,
right? And the champion pool hasn't expanded. The champion pool is the same champion pool it's been since like 2013. So you're not playing into any of the new champions. You're not learning any matchups, what they
hmm
can do when the AI is so good at pixel perfect. So why would they not
yeah,
update like for new players, you need to continuously evolve the entry part of the game so that new players can do it,
hmm
which is one of the reasons why I like Overwatch in that aspect, because they have the training mode where you can choose any character, and then you have the versus AI mode where the AI will be any characters in the roster,
yeah, and that's definitely a smart thing
right?
to do because I know if I was picking up League for the first time, it would be so much more confusing with how many new champions. Like you look at the current champion that just came out, like Hilway or however you pronounce his name, he's got like 8,000 different abilities, and as a new player, I'd be like, why does his abilities keep changing? I thought there was only
Yep.
four.
And that's the thing though too. That's why people have like Professor and Blitz and stuff, because they don't know what items to buy. There are so many
Yeah,
items. It's like, but there's nothing like if you go into the tutorial and you go into the the learning stuff, it doesn't teach you what the items do. It just says this is how you buy an item. It's like, oh,
yeah.
well, you're a mage. You should be getting cooldown reduction, mana regen. Like if I'm playing Lee Sin, why the fuck would I buy a Luden's Echo?
Well, not to
Right?
mention the recommendations that they have in
They've
game
got
are
better.
awful.
They've
They're
gotten
so
better.
bad.
I'm
Yeah, but they're still not very good because you look at like how pros build and stuff, like it's almost completely opposite of what the recommendations are. I
right.
mean, it has gotten a little better, like you said, but it's still not up to standard. I'm not saying that the recommendations should be up to the pro level, but they should be a lot more
Right.
like, yeah, because there's times where it'll recommend just Trinity Force just because you're an 80 for whatever reason. It's like Trinity Force makes no fucking sense
Yep.
here.
So
So,
so that kind of poses my next question. I'm going to start with you, Kimmer. When you have an established series or an established game, whether it's like League of Legends, Call of Duty, what do you think developers should be doing for people who are just picking up the franchise or the game for the very first time? Because you go into Call of Duty as a brand newbie, you're going to be playing against people who've been playing the series for 15 years and that are just going to make you feel like absolute garbage. It can be very demoralizing. And for a lot of kids, it's not. But for a lot of seasoned gamers, it's like, fuck, I can't even play this game because everybody's like 10 times better than I am because I've been playing for 5 minutes. They've been playing for 15 years.
This is where the easiest solution possible for all of this, and it's called SBMM, baby. It's the easiest way to fix it. And for those who don't know what that means, guild-based matchmaking, where you put people who are trash at the game and you put them with the other people that are trash at the game. And then you go with the people who are good at the game and you put them against the people that are good at the game. And it's easy, and I don't understand. Don't do it, because all you have to do is you just got to go based off stats in their games. And then obviously, if a guy is purposely losing, you know, 20 games in a row and has shit stats after just going crazy because he wants to be in better in shit lobbies to, shit on him for fun, that can cause, for one, a ban, because you don't need to be doing that. You're better, because that can be considered trolling. You're ruining the experience for other people.
Yep.
And two, it's just uh unfair. It's just the biggest thing is just unfair, because then the people who are trash at the game are not going to have fun because you're getting shit on by people who shouldn't be in your lobby. So, but it's just, I think that's the easiest thing, is just go off skill based matchmaking. And then the skill based, it used to be a thing in Call of Duty. That's why it used to be fun. It used to be a thing in Call of Duty, and it's not anymore. And that's why it used to be fun, because you could play against people at your level. It didn't matter.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, like, I will give Overwatch credit. For the most part, they do still do skill-based matchmaking. Their elo system is fucking trash. It's so hard to climb. But I would actually I agree with you. Skill-based matchmaking should be number one. Number two should be personality. So like in League, you get rewarded for being a good player, right? Which I think is a fantastic idea. And it helps keep things kind of kosher if you enforced it. So like people who are good people can be with each other and the toxic people can be with toxic people. It's a much better experience for those players who have mental health issues, who are 10 years old, who are, trying the game for the first time. And yeah, they're going to fucking suck. So why would you shit on them? Right. And then the third one, this is one that is niche to me. I think they should also do ping matching. So if you have people who are at 60 ping, they're all playing at 60 ping. If you have somebody's at 200 ping, all the people are having 200 ping. So you can't blame the lag. And now obviously you're going to have like a scope like 60 to 100 ping or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing more frustrating than seeing somebody who's actually actively worse than you shitting on you because they have a much better ping rate than you. And lag is a legitimate thing, especially at the pro level, right? It's a legitimate thing. However, there's nothing worse than being stuck on a team with a guy who's got 400 ping, who's lagging out so bad that you're getting shit on. Doesn't matter what game you're playing, right? So the servers should be doing ping matching, I think, because then that way everybody's kind of on the same level playing field. But if you do those three, it's probably a much better experience for everybody playing involved, right?
Agreed. Something I'll interject and everything. I love the idea of all games going either back to or into skill-based matchmaking. I like your ideas. I think one of the best games, at least when I used to play it for skill-based matchmaking, was CSGO, just because the elo system that they have is really crisp. Like, you're playing within a level or two of whoever you're playing, and you have to have a good KDA to be in those levels. You have to win matches, and you can't just consistently get carried up, because the game does eventually, once you start getting higher, start to punish, not necessarily punish, but it lowers how much you're raising up into those ranks for not performing well on your own individual things. And I think if a lot more games modeled that structure, then it would be better, because even League has a pretty poor structure at times. Like, their elo is decent, but then
it's going to get better.
Problems, it's going to get better, which I really am happy to hear. But one of the problems that League has had over the years is, there is a slight difference in where the ranks were. Now this season, before now they're fixing it, was pretty awful, because like for instance, Kim was in gold elo, but then we would still get matched with irons, and it's like that's ridiculous. That's such a big gap.
Yep.
And I know that they're trying to fix that and make it so that's not happening again, but the problem that League has had over the years is you'll get people who will get boosted or carried into a higher rank. They'll play solo, and it's very, very clear that they don't deserve it because the ELO system counted too much towards your wins, not your overall
Stats.
performance. And I know that's what they're attempting to shift towards, and I'm hoping that that's what they do because, you know, there are players that are generally better than the rank that they're in, but because the rank that they're in is full of garbage who don't deserve to be there, it does cause a problem. So that's why I do agree with the skill-based matchups. Like, you do need to pay more attention to stats and not so much to whose rank is what, because there are legitimately people who are at the highest ranks who are no better than a gold or silver even level player,
Right.
and that's just League.
So seeing as we're all League players, I'm going to end this on League with one final question here. What do you guys think of the video that was released yesterday of what's coming, the new updates and everything like that? And in terms of the ELO system, I hope they are going to the skill-based matchup. But one thing I'd like to see them do with ELO before you guys answer the question is I would like them to say, okay, when you log into rank for the first time on the new season, you're automatically going to be placed at whatever rank you were at last year for the longest period of time. So if you reach diamond, but you were in gold for 6 months, you're going to start in gold, right? If you were diamond for 1 week and you were iron for 9 months, well, then you should be logged into iron and work your way up, right?
yeah.
Then that way it saves kind of the boosting problem. But I mean, that's just where you start. And we all know ELO decays and goes up and all that stuff. So my question to you guys is for League of Legends, and for those of you who haven't seen the developers update, go ahead and watch it. It's actually pretty neat. It's got a little sneak peek for Arcane, which is kind of cool. But so Kim, I'm going to go to you because I know this probably affects you the most out of the three of us. What do you think about the changes that are coming? And are you actually excited with the new changes coming to the Rift as well? Because I think that this is the largest update to gameplay they have done in years.
I'm excited. I mean, I think it's gonna be a whole new game to learn. In my opinion, there's gonna be, you got voidlings you have to work with. There's a bunch of new objectives in here. I think the biggest thing is the map change, though. It's gonna change jungle paths. It's gonna change the way how supports roam. It's gonna change the way how people roam and set up games and team fights and ganks and all this stuff. It's gonna be a fun season. I think it's gonna be an interesting split as everyone. I think it's gonna take 2 months before we actually find a meta. Maybe a month before we find a meta, find what works well, what the meta is to what meshes well with the current. I think the biggest thing is the map, like I keep saying, is because it's just, a lot of the turrets are just open. There's not a lot of walls against them now, especially in mid lane. There's different pathways to walk, and stuff
Bot
like
is
that.
finally
So
fair.
it's just I'm excited. It's going to bring some. I think it's much needed because a lot of new players are finding themselves into League, and so I think this is a fair way to also introduce them to where, all right, new players also have to learn this as well, or
Yep.
old players have to learn this as well as new players. So it gives a little bit of a cushion, even though the older players will obviously adapt a little bit faster. But it gives a little bit of cushion of, all right, now everyone has to learn this new game in a way. So I'm kind of excited to see where it goes, especially with the ranked or not ranked, the pros. I'm excited to see what happens in the pro league and what they think is good and what they think is bad compared to what we all think and stuff like that. I'm excited to see how the meta, how the games are going to definitely be, because I think they're going to be a lot more fast paced than they already have been. I see a lot of games ending before 20 now, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Well,
So
I'm gonna ask Les the question because you're a jungler. Jungle is the most heaviest impacted on the map.
sure.
With the pathing, with the new gank veins, but also with that also comes the responsibility of the Rift Herald. So my question to
Yeah,
you is, as a jungler, pathing is probably going to be pretty easy to adapt. You just got to get used to it for gank paths and stuff.
sure.
But does the jungler now start giving up the Rift Herald to the top laner, for example, because maybe they're tanky and they want to ride the Rift Herald in and dive? Are you going to start thinking about, maybe I should give the Rift Herald to my top laner or my mid laner if you're playing a support mid or something like that? Like, as a jungler, what changes are like kind of exciting or even like kind of terrifying that you have to change your actual thinking and game playing? Because jungle is the most thought based position in the game.
Yeah. So full disclaimer, I am normally a main support. That is like my main
Not
role.
when I'm around.
But yeah, but I do play jungle as my sub role. To kind of answer that question, I mean, I'm gonna go into depth on Kim's faster pace. I believe the faster pace is gonna happen. I believe the jungling, obviously you're going to have to be a lot more creative, but also it is going to be potentially easier to make your ganks work. As for the Rift Herald, I don't see why you wouldn't give it to your laners and let them, especially if they're winning, snowball even further, because that's especially out a lower level. A big problem that a lot of junglers have is they don't snowball correctly. They tend to try to help the losing lane, and it should be the opposite way. You should help your winning lane, and then your winning lane can snowball it throughout. So if it makes sense, yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't give the new Rift Herald over to a tankier top, or even just give it over to like your Darius that is 5-0 or whatever, and let him dictate where that goes. Because even if he doesn't ride it in the lane, he could ride it into another lane and potentially help you gank and so on and so forth. So I feel like the changes are positive for the jungler and actually can take some of the weight off of the thinking that has to go into it, because that's my biggest problem is I sometimes overthink where I'm going, what I'm supposed to be doing, and I feel like these changes might help, especially as somebody who, I'll admit, I'm not a very good jungler. I need work. My biggest problem is I get scared to make dives happen, and I seem to always end up on the teams that shove in, get ganked, and then yell at me for not ganking. So
Like last
it's
week with our
hard.
Zed player.
Yeah, it's hard to anticipate every single time you're going to need to counter gank when all three lanes are shoved up and very gankable because of the fact that they're overextending their lanes. But
Yeah.
that's just something I need to learn better as myself. But I do agree with Kim on the changes are very positive for new players.
The only thing I don't like,
So
and this is going to be kind of controversial, is I like the idea of the shared buff, like the blue and red buffs. I don't
yes,
think it should be like the Baron buff where everyone on the team gets it. Because and I haven't read the patch notes on this, and I'm assuming it's probably still the same, where if you
mhm,
die to the enemy, they get your buff.
yeah,
And if that's the case, you give the whole team and you get wiped, you've basically just cost yourself the game. So it is a very risk versus reward. But, and we've all been in games like this, I don't trust enough of the players I play with to be able to hold that. Like if the way I look at it is, if you guys are in the same area, when it goes down, you should get the buff. But if
yeah,
I'm in bot lane and they go and hit the blue buff, I mean, great, I'm getting a free buff in bot lane. But if I'm by myself while they're taking that and I get ganked, well, the fuck's the point, right?
Yeah.
We all
So I
know
thought,
overloading the map is kind of
oh, go ahead.
a concern, especially when all of a sudden you got a whole team with free buffs.
Yeah, so I thought the shared buff, so I may need to go back in and watch again. I thought the shared buff was when the jungler took the buff that only one player could step into the area. So it's shared between everybody.
It's shared between everybody, but it's only the
Okay.
void. It's only the void buffs. It's not the new one. And that's the other thing I like about the
Oh,
jungle
only the
is
void buff. Okay.
when the Baron hits the rift, the jungle camps get stronger. It's
Yeah.
not a quick run through anymore. So, but they've also increased the amount of XP and gold you get, I think. I'd have to double check that. Excuse me.
See, so since you speak about that, I also play the Wild Rift, the mobile League of Legends or whatever. Something that I feel like they could steal away, and to go closer to the concept that you like, is once you hit a certain point, you can share the red and blue, but it's only with one player, and they have to step in and take that shared buff. So that's where I think they could make the adjustment back, or not even back down, but to that level, because then it's more how you're saying, where only certain people can share it, and that it's not everybody, and then transfers don't happen all over the place like they could.
I'm just glad it's not the first set of buffs, because otherwise everybody would be leashing for their jungler.
Yeah, seriously.
Now, Kim, because you're an ADC player, we have a new AD carry coming out who is not skill shot based, which is kind of a surprise for the first time in fucking forever. What do you think of the Dragon Smolder? Let's end on that.
Yeah, let's make my life easier, please, and just give me easy champ so I can get an easy win. That's how I feel.
Please, he sucks at Jinx.
It's if I had a better support for the most part.
For those of you
Both of you
wondering what that
guys.
was, they were just playing an ARAM. Kim was playing Jinx, and Lus was playing
Steal my kills.
Tom Kench.
Tom Kench. Thank you. I blanked on the name for a second. Tom Kench is a tanky boy, but I don't do well with melee characters. I am an enchanter support through and through. I don't mind playing Ashe support. That's always fun too. Just go straight to CDR and just arrow all over the fucking place. But the new dragon looks cute. Sounds annoying as fuck though. Oh my god.
I'm excited for it.
I mean, it suits the character. Don't get me wrong. Like they chose the right voice for it, but I like playing it. I couldn't listen to that all day. That would drive me fucking insane.
I'm gonna turn it to 100% volume for myself, just because I want to go insane while I play him. Just because he just looks super easy to play. That's why I'm like,
Sure.
I'm excited.
I was looking at that and I had a thought, like, you know how I like to come up with weird strats just for shits and giggles for fun. Do you know who'd be a really good support for Smolder?
Shyvana.
Aurelion Sol.
Ah, dang it! I was close though.
The other dragon.
Yeah,
We almost have a
other
full dragon team. We could almost make a full team.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, speaking of an all dragon team, I actually saw a game just to end on of an entire Yordle team, and fuck, they like it was slow to begin with, but Poppy and Tristana were do Poppy and Tristana things, but Teemo was in mid lane and he was losing gracefully, and then he hit level 12. And all of a sudden the enemy team couldn't fucking walk anywhere because he just went full CDR mushroom build, and he was playing like support Teemo in mid, and like the entire team would walk up to a camp and just it's like, holy shit. Like he literally just left his lane once he hit like level 12 and laning phase was done, and he just littered the map with mushrooms. He didn't do anything else, just walked around the map just littering it with mushrooms.
That's awesome.
His jungler was having so much fun because playing Poppy, you just slam them into the wall, but you cross mushrooms while you do it. And it's like instant death, stun, CC for days. Fuck, man. It's pretty neat. Rumble in the top lane. Lulu and Tristana were bought. It is a fun watch. I'll see if I can find the video. I'll send it to you guys. But that's going to be it for this week. If you guys have any other games and nostalgia, stuff like that. I'm always going to shout out Mega Man because that was the first game I ever got.
Mega
Love
Man.
love the Mega Man series, fantastic series. Mega Man X, awesome. Never played Mega Man Network, but I'm told it's good. But it's like Pokemon. I was never into Pokemon, so that's not a me thing. All right, but we will see you in the next one. Have fun and enjoy the new year. Cheers.
Peace.
Bye.